Welcome to week 9 of Creating a Life with God. And we are continuing with some of the more physical prayers this week. We talked about body prayer last week. This week we're talking about walking in terms of thinking about our journey in our relationship with God. And I wanted to share something from the very beginning of the chapter with you. Walking towards God, the journey made visible. Wolpert says, as our physical bodies move through space, our minds move too. God can enter our beings because movement creates space and creates new possibilities. So in the first couple of pages, he's just really exploring the idea that we are all on this journey of discipleship, of growth towards God. And so walking is a great representation and metaphor for this journey that we're on. And he talks specifically about how the connection of moving our body with walking helps to engage our mind in a different way. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about creativity, right? That there is a sort of a zone that you get into when your hand is busy coloring or painting or weeding a garden or cooking, right? That as your physical body is occupied with an activity, you are able to go to sort of a different place in your brain. A lot of times things start to quiet down and you're able to go deeper and think. But Wolpert also acknowledges the fact that when we first start to try to do this, our minds can get even louder, that our thoughts begin to race, right? And all of these extraneous things come in and start happening. This is on page 131. You might notice how full your mind is, how it runs like one of those bird-shaped lawn ornaments who spin in the breeze as the bird goes nowhere. No wonder we rarely notice God. There's no space for the Spirit to speak to us. You might notice your desires. You might feel the need to move more quickly. You might have an itch, or there's just something you want to talk about. Perhaps you're becoming aware of how anxious that you are in this moment. So you have to allow those feelings and those desires to sort of wash over you and not panic about them. And then just sort of be able to set them aside. Okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm going to put this over here for a little bit and kind of draw your attention back to God. With walking, and specifically walking a labyrinth, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, this is like any of our other prayer practices. It takes intention. It takes us stopping before we begin, to pause, to breathe, to make sure that we are in the right headspace, that we have addressed God, that we have sort of stated our intention to spend this time with Him on this journey. Now, Wolpert goes through sort of the history of journeys in the Bible. In particular, he talks about the fact that Jesus in his ministry was always on the move, that he was crisscrossing back and forth all over Israel. And then, towards the end of his life, he very purposefully set his eyes on Jerusalem, and he went journeying to Jerusalem, even though others around him were warning him that it might not end well. He deliberately set out on a journey to be in Jerusalem and to teach. And there's one great gospel witness that happens on after the resurrection on a journey, the walk to Emmaus. These two believers who were leaving Jerusalem, saddened after Jesus' death, and who are walking when a stranger comes and joins them. And as the three of them are walking, they talk, and they are shocked to find out this stranger knows nothing about all of the things that have happened in Jerusalem with Jesus that week. And so they're sharing from their hearts. And Jesus is walking alongside of them, and they don't even necessarily recognize him until they get to their destination and they break bread together. But this idea that not only was Jesus on a journey, but that Jesus comes and meets us on our journeys as well. Monastic communities began to walk in courtyards very deliberately. And so from that, we get some other developments later on that involve the labyrinth. But the trick to moving our bodies in prayer is not to speed walk as we walk, right? This is not a cardio exercise to help you lose weight. It's slow and deliberate and kind of focused on God and on what God might be able to say to us. I liken it to I can ride my bike and do several times a week and can do 7 miles in like 40 minutes. But when I go and I walk the dogs, it takes me 40 minutes to do 2 miles, right? Because they have to stop and sniff and smell and mark and do all of these things, and they're so aware of everything that's happening around them. And when I walk, either praying, walking in our neighborhood, or walking the labyrinth, I have to remind myself that to slow down, because it's not about getting and racing to the destination. It is about the journey. It is about every step, and the attention and the focus that we have on God. So let's talk about labyrinths a little bit. Labyrinths are ancient. They have been around for years and years. Your book talks about this a lot this week. After Jerusalem fell, later on, it was conquered by the Muslims, and there was a mosque built right over the side of the destroyed temple. And so during the period of the Crusades and things, it became really difficult to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And what were you going to make a pilgrimage to? And so people began utilizing labyrinths as a way of still being able to make a pilgrimage, thinking and reflecting that the center of a labyrinth was Jerusalem. Labyrinths have been around for like 4,000 years. The most important thing to understand in the difference between a labyrinth and a maze is that a labyrinth has one path in and the same path out. And a maze is full of choices, right? And some are dead ends, and you can actually get lost in a maze. There's no way to get lost in a labyrinth. You put your feet deliberately 1 foot in front of the other and follow the path, and you will make it to the center. And following that same pattern, you will make it back out. You don't have to make all the choices. You just have to follow the path, right, that's been laid out before you, that's going to take you to the center, which for many people used to represent Jerusalem. For us now, it probably really represents the very heart of God. It represents Jesus. So people started to build labyrinths in their cathedrals as a sort of way of letting people make those pilgrimages to Jerusalem when it wasn't safe to do that. And there's a couple of different ways to walk labyrinths. There's really no wrong way to walk a labyrinth, because if you're walking and you're being intentional about your time with God, That's all you need. But some people like a little bit more direction than that. So you can think on page 133, it talks about how you can make some segments to your walk. The first phase, you're walking towards God. In this phase, you're shedding everything that keeps you from being in union with God. So I think of it as letting go of all of the burdens that I'm carrying, all the extra baggage that I'm carrying. Here's this worry, here's this anxiety, here's this frustration, here's this disappointment, and I am letting them go. I'm dropping them as I'm walking into the center of the labyrinth. And then the center of the labyrinth, where God is this union with God, right? I sit down often. There's been times when I've laid down in the labyrinth at camp and just spent time there. And I spend time there until I feel like I'm ready to get up and to move. So sometimes it's a long time and sometimes it's a short time. And then as you make your way back out, that's the third phase. You're going back out with God into the world. And so a lot of times I name my blessings. I name the ways I've sensed God's presence. What's the reassurance that I might have gotten from God that I can carry with me out into the world? Just like people used it as an idea of going to Jerusalem and back for a pilgrimage, people also use it as a way of sort of representing dying to yourself and being raised with Jesus. We are so blessed and so fortunate that we actually have a labyrinth here in town. There's a national labyrinth locator that's online. You can just Google it if you happen to be traveling. I found one in Sarasota while we were at the beach this year doing that. But we have one right here in town, out on Pixiola Island, going into Lake Griffin at the conference side of the Warren Willis United Methodist Camp and Conference Center. There is a St. Michael's pattern labyrinth, many different patterns of labyrinths out there, but this is a St. Michael's pattern labyrinth. It's a concrete path and walkway located between one of the residence halls and the dining hall on Lake Griffin. And you are able to go there. In fact, we're gonna meet this week, those of us who are able, at 11:15 on Thursday, to be able to go and walk the labyrinth in person. So that's why I'm recording all of this ahead of time for people to watch later on. But you're invited to go out at any time and drive to the camp and walk the labyrinth there and spend as much time as you would like. There's a few benches that are around it. There's a small prayer chapel that's even between the labyrinth and the lake that you can utilize. So how do you do this? When you get to the labyrinth, you start with silence. And you just, if you're walking with multiple people, you just let there be space in between you, right? As you start, kind of stagger starts. And if you happen to walk faster than the person in front of you, it's okay to pass people, to step to the side and pass people. That's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to slow your pace down or speed your pace up to try and match other people's. Just do what comes natural for you, and if you need to, you can just step around people. But bring your focus to God as you begin. You can actively pray. You can just sort of let your mind wander. You can think about letting go of things as you walk in towards the center. And you just sort of pay attention to your body as you do it. Sometimes it takes me 30 minutes to walk the labyrinth. Other days it can take me, 10 to 12 minutes to walk the one at camp. It just depends on the day. It depends on the experience. It depends on how open I make myself to the presence of God as we are doing that. So right now I want to share with you a video, an example of me walking the labyrinth. This video was created earlier this year and shared at annual conference in a workshop for pastors about clergy care. It's called the spiritual spa. We're supposed to give a few minutes of calm and peace in a practice that helps us. So I picked the Labyrinth. I'm thankful to Joey Landstedt, our own Joey, for coming out and filming me doing this and doing all of the video editing and audio editing to make this video possible. So I'm going to invite you just to find a comfortable spot in your chair, uncross your legs, get comfy and cozy, breathe in and out, and we will watch this video together about what it's like to walk a labyrinth. The labyrinth at camp has been a place of refuge for me in this last year. More than ever before, I have sought God's presence here and been comforted. I invite you to join me on the journey today, to settle into a comfortable posture and to relax your breathing. Entering the labyrinth, take a moment to pause, to breathe deep, and open ourselves wide to whatever God has in store for this particular walk. As we go, try to slow the racing of the mind by concentrating on our breath. Slow and steady. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in light and breathe out fears. Breathe in peace and breathe out anxieties. Breathe in love and breathe out the weight of others' expectations. Breathe in grace and breathe out our need to earn approval through our striving. Here we remember that our identity is first and foremost not the work of our hands, but rather the Imago Dei. We are rooted in blessing. Before we say anything, before we do anything, we are beloved simply because we are yours. Each step taken here can be taken with trust. This is not a maze. There are no wrong choices or dead ends. Each step in draws us closer to the heart of God. God's gracious Spirit meets us in this place. Surrounds us, upholds us, breathes joy and resurrection into our hearts, our minds, our very souls, renews our hope. While our journeys in this world may be uncertain,
O God, you are steadfast, faithful, present here with us, and you walk with us back into the world. May we breathe deeply and simply rest in you. Amen.
So, I hope that you got something out of that and enjoyed a little taste of the labyrinth. If you have the chance to go out, if you need help with directions or anything like that, let me know. I'll put the address in the comment box. And also, I will, oops. All right, there you all are again. I hope that even if you don't make it out to the labyrinth, that you're able to take some time this week to just walk and pray. Take a short loop around your neighborhood, walk deliberately, put your attention and focus on God, and see what might happen and what might develop for you. I'll be thinking about you and praying for all of you this week.